And we asked for any communications between Alvin Bragg and the Biden Justice Department, and they said, we've looked and we can't find any. But you disagree with that. You disagree with what Mr. Garland told this committee, the House Judiciary Committee. You disagree with that. Tell me why you disagree with that.
Well, you know, it's not just a question of disagreement, it's a question of fact. The New York Manhattan DA's office let America First Legal know that there were 36 responsive records.
So when Merrick Garland told this committee we can't find anything, that wasn't accurate, was it?
I'll let this committee make that inference, but it would seem so.
Wasn't accurate based on what Alvin Bragg told the court, right?
Correct.
Jim Jordan absolutely dismantled the narrative surrounding the legal attacks on former President Donald Trump. Jordan didn't just question the witness, he exposed what many are calling a coordinated effort to weaponize the legal system against Trump. Jim Jordan wasted no time getting to the heart of the issue. He started off by making it crystal clear. The American people are the real jury here, not just the 12 jurors in a courtroom.
Mr. Jordan, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It backfired, didn't it, Mr. Epstein?
Yes, sir.
I mean, the gentleman from New York, our colleague on the other side, talked about he'd trust 12 jurors in New York, but the real jury was the 330 million Americans. I mean, we, the people, are the ultimate jury in our great country. And you think about what did I love the list you put together, I think on page 1 or 2 here of your testimony, but it was the dossier, false dossier that they took to a secret court to get a warrant to spy on a presidential campaign. That wasn't enough. The Mueller investigation, they could do all the Trump-Russia Mueller investigation, finds no collusion, no coordination, none whatsoever. Then they raid his home, part of the Jack Smith investigation, Alvin Bragg, Fonnie Willis, the other Jack Smith investigation, the 14th Amendment, and the American people saw through it all. Saw through it all because it was lawfare. I mean, the Democrats' argument seems to me to be, criticizing lawfare is worse than the lawfare itself. It's just not what it is. So tell me this, part of this lawfare and some of the details, who's Matthew Colangelo?
Matthew Colangelo was an acting associate attorney general in the Garland Department of Justice, who then moved to the Manhattan DA's office to work on the Bragg prosecution.
What did he do before he was at the Department of Justice? Where did Matthew Colangelo work prior to that?
I don't recall.
I think it was the New York Attorney General's office, wasn't it?
Makes sense.
Tish James's office. So here's a guy who worked for Tish James, then worked for the Biden-Garland Justice Department, and then Alvin Bragg says, we want him to work for us. And according to media, he came to work for Alvin Bragg for what reason? I think you put it in your testimony.
Yeah, he obviously was motivated by the case against President Trump.
Yeah, to jumpstart their investigation, I think is the term that was used in the press. And we asked for any communications between Alvin Bragg and the Biden Justice Department, and they said, we've looked and we can't find any. But you disagree with that. You disagree with what Mr. Garland told this committee, the House Judiciary Committee. You disagree with that. Tell me why you disagree with that.
Well, you know, it's not just a question of disagreement, it's a question of fact. The New York Manhattan DA's office let America First Legal know that there were 36 responsive records.
So when Merrick Garland told this committee we can't find anything, that wasn't accurate, was it?
I'll let this committee make that inference, but it would seem so.
Wasn't accurate based on what Alvin Bragg told the court, right?
Correct.
Wow, well, go figure. So we'd like that information. That's going to be, I think, the next thing we ask the Attorney General Bondi, if we can get access to some of those 36 responsive records that you talked about. Now, Mr. Twilliger, this legislation that we're talking about, where you can take the case to federal court when you got some state local prosecutor coming after a federal official, it's not just for Republicans, is it?
It's certainly not. And in fact, both as to formers and as to the reinstalling the substantive scope, expanded scope that Congress intended going back to at least 2011, I think every former official of the Biden administration would cheer you on.
Yeah, I mean, like it's just as important for if some prosecutor in Arkansas, Oklahoma, some red state decides for whatever reason he's going to, I would assume he'd do it based on the facts and the evidence, but let's say it's maybe a little shaky. Maybe not. Maybe it's a great case. But still, we're saying, okay, to the chief of staff of President Biden, Mr. Zients, if they're coming after you, you can move that to federal court. You don't have to go into some state court in a red state. You can go to a federal court. It applies across the board because we want equal treatment under the law in this great country.
So true, Mr. Jordan. And the fact of the matter is that I really would urge, particularly your colleagues on the other side of the aisle on this committee, to go back and look at what those two Democrat-appointed presidential judges said in the 11th Circuit case. They recognized just how perniciously dangerous it is. What is a chief of staff supposed to do when the president says, I want you to set up a phone call, I need to talk to so-and-so? Oh, wait a minute. Am I going to get in trouble with Fonnie Willis because I do this?
Yeah.
It's absurd.
No, it's absurd. That's absurd. And just the overall attack on executive privilege, for goodness sake. And this goes clear back to George Washington, something we have honored. And the people most close to the president are the White House counsel and his chief of staff, and they've always had that privilege there until now. In their effort to get President Trump, they said, we're going to violate something that's been around since Washington, and they did this. And what we're saying is, let's at least fix it so you can go to federal court, fix part of it, so you can go to a jury that's different than some local prosecution, some jury at a local level.
Yes, sir. These are quintessential federal questions that have to be brought into federal court.
I thank the chairman and our witnesses for, I'm sorry, Professor Foley, I didn't get to you. I usually like to try to get a question to all of our witnesses in these type of hearings. But with that, I will yield back to the chair.
I thank the chairman of the full committee, Mr. Jordan. I will now recognize myself for 5 minutes for questions. One thing that was raised earlier was a little bit is about how, 15 years ago, the DOJ may have gotten a little bit politicized.
Jim Jordan absolutely exposed the hypocrisy behind these prosecutions. The Democrats wanted to use lawfare to destroy Trump, but instead, they revealed just how desperate and corrupt their tactics really are. And guess what? The American people see it. They know the truth. And come election time, you better believe they'll remember. If you found this breakdown eye-opening, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments. Do you think these prosecutions are purely political? Let's get the conversation going. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.